When you hear philosophy, your mind likely wanders to the Western philosophers of Aristotle, Aquinas, Plato, Socrates, or even Immanuel Kant. Whilst you do not even consider the Islamic counterparts of Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, or even Ibn Arabi. When you hear economics, the so-called father of economics, 18th century economist Adam Smith would come to mind. However, a man who lived centuries before from Northern Africa, Ibn Khaldun, of whose work Adam Smith was influenced by, is shunned and unknown by most. When you think of empires, your mind thinks of the brutal colonialism of the British and French, and the medicinal, scientific, mathematical discoveries of the Abbasids is a distant memory, and the outstanding wealth of Mali is forgotten. This is the forgotten heroes of history. Our journey begins with Islamic philosophers, one of the most famous of whom is Imam Ghazali, who in the 11th century wrote The Incoherence of Philosophers, whereby he criticized Aristotle and Plato's work and whoever is to follow them, as well as writing The Alchemy of Happiness, which poses the questions significantly relevant for today's society, such as the roots of happiness, etc. Nizam al-Mulk wrote Siyasat-e-Nama, which explains how to run a state, and is still used by multiple governments today. Averroes expanded and codified much of Aristotle and Plato's work, much of which is now lost and unknown. Al-Farabi reconciled Aristotle and Plato's work with Islam. But why is it that none of these are taught? It is because of the Western depiction of these philosophers. Look at Aquinas' writing on Islam, seeing them as ignorant and misled. Look at Martin Luther's take on Muslims. See Raphael's depiction of Ibn Rushd. Our next stop is economics, the father of which goes by the name of Ibn Khaldun. He lived in the 12th century in northern Africa. In his book Al-Muqaddimah, he goes on to explain that growth and development leads to a rise in both demand and supply, as well as explaining that division of labor leads to specialization, as well as a diagram known as the Laffer curve. To put this into perspective, I, as an economics student, study all these things explained, and I'm taught that Adam Smith is responsible for most of this, and not even taught the name Ibn Khaldun. Our final stop is empires. We are taught about the brutal colonialism that took place. We are taught about Europe controlling the world. Britain had the largest empire, most powerful and richest empire ever to exist. We learn that the Middle East, Asians, Africans were uncivilized people who were easily colonized by the British and French. We are taught that the Reconquista was a political, secular affair. We are not taught of the scientific, mathematical discoveries of the East, the House of Wisdom of Baghdad. We are not taught about the father of algebra and algorithms, Al-Khwarizmi. We are not taught that the first man to fly was Ibn Firnas. We are not taught that the richest empire was the Malis, that the richest man was Mansa Musa. We are not taught of the genocide committed by the Spanish upon the Jews and Muslims during the Inquisition. We are instead sold a dream of lies and ignorance, of falsehood and obedience. We cannot succumb to this sugar-coated curriculum, and we must rise up. Remember, history is his story, and his story is the story of falsehood. His story is the story of colonialism. Our story is the story of knowledge. Our story is the story of truth. And that is the purpose of this video.